to Equalizer. I am honored to have today's guest, Brigadier General Zvika Haimovich. The general is a former commander of the Israel Air Defense Forces, over 30 years of experience in national security and protecting civilians, key contributor to critical systems like the Iron Dome, experienced leader through periods of significant tension and changes, now advising others and sharing his insights to promote understanding and safety. Our conversation aims to highlight both his accomplishments and the real-world impact of his work. Welcome, General Haimovich, to my program Equalizer. It is an honor to have you in this small program. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how was it that you became a Air Force officer in the Israeli Air Force?
So I started and joined my career when I was 18 years old, as every teenager in Israel, and I started immediately as an airman and air defender airman for a soldier, all the pyramid through battery commander, battalion commander, wing commander, a few headquarter jobs, and the last position was the head of the pyramid, the Air Defense Forces commando. So three decades of military career through all the phases, with a lot of operational and professional experience around Israel, a lot of campaign, wars, etc. And that's my life in a few seconds.
How has the 2025 conflict changed Israel's approach to the Iranian missile threats?
Yeah, it's a bit broader than a direct question about the Iranian threat in the Iran war last June. Actually, we build our forces and we build our very unique multi-tier concept. That Iran was kind of the compass. When we started the Aero project, it was the late 18 when President Reagan declared the Star Wars. It was kind of a science fiction. No one all over the world that time thought it could be. It's a reality to intercept in the sky, space, 1,000 miles above the ground level, to speed bodies, missiles will engage each other very precisely. So we started the late 18s with the Aero, and the first mission for the Aero was to prepare the Aero mission to the Iranian threat. And then, after a few conflicts, a few local domestic conflicts, mainly the Second Lebanon War in 2006, that was the trigger to build the Iron Dome, and in between the David Sling, and here you are in a few decades, build a multi-tier integrated concept. So it's the Iron Dome, David Sling, Aero 2, Aero 3. All of them focus on the ballistic missiles, the short, medium, and long-range missiles.
In your view, did Israel strike Iran's nuclear facilities, achieve their main objective at that particular time?
That's a great question. I believe that all the intel services in US and Israel mainly, they are focusing on today to have a clear and better answer to your very, very simple and very sharp question. There is no question that Iranian nuclear facilities during the 12 days war were hardly attacked by Israel, and finally, by the last attack by the US forces. But the main question is exactly how many or how long we push them back in the nuclear project. it's a question of months, of years. It's still a question remark. There is no question that we didn't destroy totally all the nuclear project, not the vision, not the knowledge, and not the facilities. We did a huge damage in all this formula, from the scientists, for the person knowledge, to the laboratories and the facilities. There is no question. But I do believe that the Iranian vision, it still exists. And they try to rebuild and renew, even recently, the nuclear capabilities. So in my own assumption, the question is not if we destroy it or not. The question is how long time it will take for the second round. It could be weeks or a month, but if you will hear carefully the voices from Tehran and from the Iranian regime and leaders, I think that you don't have a question or remark. Where are the Iranians today, and where I hope to be a few, or in the near future, or a few months from today?
The Iranian proxies is still able to coordinate large-scale attacks against Israel at this moment?
Once we're talking about the Iranian proxies, they build a front belt or a front fingers in their own body around the state of Israel, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iranian militias in Syria, militias in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen. There are only proxies that still exist and relevant. I think that Hamas and Hezbollah today, these two organizations, they are under the level that they can threat effectively Israel. Syria under a huge change with the new regime, with El-Julani, and he pushed back the Iranian militias from Syria back to Iraq and Iran. So I think that the situation today, once you are asking me about the proxies in Israel, if I try to compare it for October 6th, it's a huge difference, except the Houthis and a few small and I would say non-relevant organizations in Iraq. I cannot see any other proxies relevant that can threat Israel.
General, why is it that every time Israel does an exchange of prisoners with these regimes, why do Israel have to give so many terrorists back to those regimes without getting back what Israel is asking for?
Unfortunately, we are in the situation that the other side hold our people, our civilians, and a few of our soldiers, 20 of them are alive, and 30, unfortunately, are dead. And in our value, in our tradition, in Israel, mainly in the independent Israel, we are doing and we will do everything to release our people, even if the prices are very heavy, and even that there are terrorists that they killed hundreds of our people down the years, so the last decades. And each one of our civilian and mainly our soldiers that we are sending to the battlefield, they must know that the state of Israel, the government, the cabinet of Israel, they will do whatever they need to release him. And the Palestinian prisoners, it's part of the process. They are not the only process, but there is no question they are part of the process.
What is the current rocket and missile threat from Hezbollah at this time?
Well, it's a good question, because Hezbollah today in a very sensitive position, not against Israel, against himself in Lebanon, the state of Lebanon, the government of Lebanon. After a long time, many years, that Lebanon ran without official government, the new government, leading by the previous chief of the staff, the Lebanon army chief of staff, they took a very brave decision in August 7th to take Hezbollah out of his forces, to collect all the weapons, all the weaponry systems from Hezbollah to the Lebanon army. And this decision took Hezbollah in a position that he didn't know before. When he established in the late 80s, he was sure that he will be the leader and the release of the Lebanese people and the rest of the Palestinian people. And that decision 2 weeks ago put Hezbollah in a corner that he didn't know before. The question if the Lebanon government, they have the power to do it. They have the ambitions to do it. They have the ability to do it. I hope that's all these three questions. The answer is yes. I believe that the situation today in Lebanon, and not only Lebanon, also all the international umbrella that's above Lebanon and Israel in that case, that will help and support Lebanon to do it. Because if they will do it, and if they will succeed to do it, it will affect immediately, of course, our northern border, but not only.
Has the Israeli civilian preparedness improved along the northern border after this incident?
Yes, we can see it. We can see it definitely from day to day. I was today in one of our TV studio and interviewed with one of the civilian and one of the mayor in our cities, and he said that 90% of the students will start next week the new year. It's a huge and great news, not only for the northern cities and towns, the rest of Israel, that become a normal and routine in our northern border after almost 2 years. So that's a small number, but emphasize the huge change after 2 years in the north part of Israel.
How vulnerable is northern Israel to Hezbollah tunneling and infiltration tactics?
I'm not sure that today they are in the position and they're not in the area, in the places that they were before October 7th. We pushed them north than the Litani River. That is a few miles from the border. All the villages that they are very close, very near to our border, the few 2 miles, they are empty from civilian, from Hezbollah post. As I know, and the intelligence forces, the military and the other services in Israel, they declare that all this buffer zone from the border and 2-3 miles north to the border, they are free from any threats under and above ground threats, tunnels, and etc. and so on.
What international actors are mediating between Israel and Hezbollah?
I think that they took a crucial place back to end of 2004 when they got the formal ceasefire, and they create the principles that we will keep the situation. Even today, a few hours ago, the Israel Air Force UAVs attacked one of the Hezbollah terrorists not far from the border. And this action, it's a kind of a weekly or even daily situation. That's based on the principles that the US, France, and the other European community, they are part of the principles that we got after the war, and it still exists, or the mechanism that's working between Israel, Lebanon, through the international mechanism leading by US and France. It is working. It is working effectively. It's keeping the interests of security of the state of Israel, and at the same time Lebanon. It's a very sensitive situation. After October 7th, we cannot allow any relevant threats exist and rebuild near our borders. This is one of our main lessons learned from the October 7th, not only about Hamas and Hezbollah. Doesn't matter even the border are far away and not sitting really on the fence and knocking the door to Israel like the Houthis or the militias in Iraq and Iran. We cannot allow any relevant and effective threat to be around us, far away or near to the Israeli borders.
What lessons were learned about the air defense from the last round with Hezbollah?
There are a lot, or a few, but I will mention and emphasize one of them. We can see that the classic modern bit changed. The aerial aspect become much more intensity. The fronts change position. The home front become the front, and the front play less player than the wars that we knew a few decades ago. And talking about the aerial aspect or the new aerial war, a lot of UAVs, a lot of ballistic rockets, missiles, and mortars that kind of bypass to our fronts, directly to our home front, threaten directly the center of Israel. And it's not one direction, it's not one front, it's a multi-front, multi-directional threat simultaneously. When I'm talking about simultaneously threat, we can find in these 2 years a lot of time points that threat from east, west, north, and south threat the state of Israel. UAVs from Yemen, threat from west, mortars from Hamas engaged from south, and Hezbollah and militias in Iraq and Syria from north and east. That was the situation. So to protect your state 360 degree, it's much more complicated than focus on one direction. And that learned that a lot, that we need to build our forces flex enough to change the direction, to update the situation, the directions rapidly from front to front, and even for a few fronts in 180 degree for the other front. That was one of the main lessons learned, that you need to keep your forces flex enough to deal simultaneously with the threats 360 degree.
Is Hamas still able to smuggle weapons into Gaza at this time?
There is no zero number in the formula once we are talking about chances and risks. You cannot run after the last terrorist or the last tunnel or the last mortar. Always the other side will hold a few weapons. That's not the parameter that will achieve our goal. It's working parallelly for a few pillars. First of all, we need to break all the military capabilities, Hamas, Hezbollah, and all others. But at the same times, we need to focus on the civilian, the politicians' pillar, and to change the regime and to change the mind from the educational programs. Then we will work effectively through the threat. So even today, once we are occupied almost 85% of the Gaza Strip area, the Hamas can attack our forces and he can launch once a week or once or 2 weeks short-range mortar to our settlements around the Gaza Strip. That's the situation, but that doesn't say that, okay, who is the winner and who is the loser in that situation. Hamas, after the October 7th, is totally not the same organization that we knew before.
How serious is the risk of Gaza turning into a failed state?
It's a question. I think it's quite a tricky question, because there is no a Gaza state and then a West Bank state. There is no one Palestinian state who has the one Palestinian voice. This is the PLO, this is the Hamas. Who is the candidate that we are dealing and talking to? So even the Palestinians themselves, they didn't solve, not before and not after the October 7th, who is officially the Palestinian voice. There is a Hamas state in Gaza, and there is a Palestinian state in the West Bank. So now we are talking about the two-state solution, for example. So Israel is one side, but who is the other side? The Hamas or the Palestinians? So I think that's, first of all, the Palestinian people and the Palestinian leaders for the two sides that I mentioned, they need to declare and solve from themselves who is really the Palestinian leader, who is really the Palestinian authority. And then we can talk about the long range or the near future situation between Israel and the other side, the Palestinians. Because today, talking or mentioning Palestinian, who are the Palestinians? The Hamas in Gaza or the Palestinian in the West Bank? I don't know. If you know, let me know, and then we can solve the situation.
Right. They themselves cannot put a leader to lead them.
They cannot. I'm not sure that they could. I'm not sure that they have the willing to do it. They don't have the ambitions to do it. The fact is that they've lived like that since 2007, when the Hamas took by power the control, the authority in Gaza. He killed the Palestinian policemen and officers in Gaza, and he took by kind of a military revolution the control of Gaza. Since that time, 2007, Abu Mazen and other the Palestinian authorities, they didn't try to get back the situation in Gaza. That's the fact. That's the reality, unfortunately. Unfortunately from the Palestinian people, and unfortunately from our perspective. Both of us suffering a lot from the fact that Hamas, since 2007, controlled brutally the situation in Gaza, and we saw the evidence in October 7th.
Has Israel's policy shifted in terms of humanitarian aid versus security needs?
Always the military and the security conditions, they are only one step and one phase. As Clausewitz say, almost 200 years ago, we need the two ends, the political aid and the military security aid. Both of them shake hands and have the solutions. Once we don't have these two ends to shake on the mid, we will need to continue and to keep our security for life.
Can the reconstruction in Gaza help stabilize the area at all?
There is no question. This is one of the principles that the international community, the Arab community need to put on the table, because you need to promise a future for the Palestinian people. And this is one of the main principles that can continue the time and promise the future for these poor people. Most of these poor people, they are the outcome of the Hamas aggressive brutalic attack on October 7th morning. There is no doubt about it. But this is only one of the principles that can make the change on the ground.
Does Israel see a rising risk of a new intifada in 2025?
Actually, we are still fighting what you call intifada, or I call this a local conflict in the West Bank. I believe that you mentioned for, and it didn't stop. It didn't stop since the first intifada in '87. So officially, since '87, we are in a long intifada milestones down the road. So actually, it didn't stop, not the last 2 years and not before. There are a lot of terrorist groups in the West Bank. Most of them, they are Hamas and other jihad Islamic groups, but not only. We need to protect our people. Only yesterday, our special forces and the police forces arrested 2 terrorists in Tel Aviv, hours before actions that they prepared to. That's the situation. We need to continue what you call the intifada. I call to keep our people safe in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, in the center, in the north. It doesn't matter, around the state of Israel.
How does Iran fund or incite violence in the West Bank?
Iran, they are fully involved in the Israeli internal situation. They are sponsors. They are kind of the backyard of all the terrorist organizations and the non-government organizations that they are in Israel. They gave before, and even today, they give them the weapons, they give them the money directly and indirectly. A few of that people from the West Bank flew to Tehran, trained and educated in Iran. So Iran ambitious to destroy the state of Israel with all the tools that they can find, a long-range missile program, nuclear program, or a local domestic terrorist in Israel. All of them, they are on the table. All of them, they are running on the same time. So from the Iran perspective, there is no big difference before or after June 2025.
The reason I asked about the funding is because Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terrorist organizations have traveled to Latin America, have been in place in Latin America for a long time, and they got involved in narcotic trafficking, weapon trafficking, and they also provide training to the Venezuelan regime and other regimes around Latin America, which with those funds, they go back to those programs and to those terrorist camps to support the war against Israel. What is Israel doing in Latin America?
You are more than correct. The money driven is kind of the engine of all your actions. With no money, you are not relevant. Iran know that, Hezbollah know that. That's the fact that they spend billions of dollars, Iran to sponsor all that proxies in our region, but not only. You mentioned Latin America, but in Europe and Africa as well. And on the same time, the Iranian people, one of the poorer economy and state all over the world. Only a few hours per day with electricity. Only a few hours per day with water in the kitchen. But at the same time, they are funding and sponsored all that proxies by billions of dollars. And they try to do it even today, because they know that if they will lose all that proxies, all that routes all over the world, they will lose the power. So they allowed and they continue that pipes, that life pipes of money, even today. So we try to stop all that transactions of money, focusing on international banks, focusing all that cryptos or and other coins that they are play a crucial play game in this situation. But there is no questions that the money is the engine of most of the bad actions leading by Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran as well. We know exactly which critical play Qatar play in this your money or budget or economy question that you asked. There is no question that the money it's very important in this situation, in this battlefield.
The other thing, logistically, where is the Iranian government getting the microchips and the parts to be able to assemble so many drones, not only in Iran, but also now in Venezuela? Where are the parts?
And not only Venezuela, even in Russia, in the war in Europe between Russia and Ukraine, and supporting the Houthis in Yemen by hundreds of them, and more. Iran is kind of a superpower. Once you are talking about UAVs and tactical ballistic missiles and rockets, Iran is a superpower. I don't know a lot of states, modern Western states, that have the capabilities that the Iranian build in the last few decades. They build a very sophisticated industry in Iran. Most of them, they are local parts and local industry, but at the same time, there is still international umbrella in a very strange coalition by North Korea, China, and Russia, that they are still supporting Iranian needs and Iranian requirements to continue and build UAVs, missiles, and then ship them all over the world, to Latin America, to Africa, or to the Houthis in Yemen. That's the situation.
Right, because a lot of the critical parts for good, USBs, the drones, you just can't go and buy them in the market. Some of them require special permissions and licenses to be sold, and that hidden agenda by corporations or smugglers of parts must be a multi-million-dollar business.
Absolutely, you can smuggle them by suitcases, landing in a commercial airport, and in your suitcase, GPSs or some other small electronic pieces that are very crucial. They are very important for your drones and UAVs industry, and you can get whatever you need. So it's absolutely working like you asked. They are try all the ways, air, sea, ground, all the ways to have that parts to Iran and other places that they are supporting the Iranian industry.
What role does technology play in monitoring and securing the West Bank?
Back to the West Bank and your question about the Intifada and the situation, the security situation in Israel. Don't forget that once we are talking about the West Bank, 100,000 of Israeli, almost 500,000 with all the settlements and the small towns, Israeli living officially in that case, and they are mixed in with the Palestinian people. So 500,000 of the Israeli people, with a little bit more than 1 million Palestinians, they living only a fence make the difference between our position, our sites, our properties, and the Palestinian properties. So it's very sensitive situation, and it's very complicated to protect your people. I'll give you only one example to emphasize why it's so complicated talking about the security of the safe situation. They are using the same roads. The Palestinian people and our Israeli civilian citizens that they are living as the neighbors on the same hill, they are using the same road. So you try to protect your people, but on the same time, the Palestinians using the same road, and the terrorists, the Palestinian terrorists, the Hamas terrorists in the West Bank, they are shooting on the cars. Part of the cars, the Palestinian, part of the Israelis. So it's very complicated to define who is the enemy, who is the friend, who is the hostile, who is the friend. So that's the very sensitive, very complicated situation to have the security and to protect your people in the West Bank.
Coordination with Gulf allies play a significant role in the air defense of Israel?
We are talking about the professional term, we're talking about regional defense. We build in the last decade or so on a mechanism that we call the regional defense, that the allies that you mentioned, they are part of the mechanism. We are sharing the same interest, and we are sharing the same threat. The Iranian regime threat Jordan, threat Saudi Arabia, and threat UAE, same like Israel. So we are sharing the same interest, the same threat. So that's the fact. We need to shake our hands, to share the information, to build a mechanism that we will share the information. We have a global or a regional defense architecture, mainly by sensor, with a lot of American sources on the ground, but not only on the region, in the Middle East, in the places that you mentioned and others. So we build all that architecture under one umbrella, one control that share the same situational awareness picture, the same operational picture. And that's maximize our forces. That's improve our effective achievements once we are talking about Iran and some other faraway threats. Absolutely, it's important to protect effectively the state of Israel, and not only, at the same time, Jordan and Saudi Arabia and some other candidates around the state of Israel.
What was the biggest surprise and technology that you discovered from the Iranian attacks?
To be honest, I didn't see something that we didn't know before. We knew exactly about the Iranian capabilities, the Iranian scale. We knew the Iranian missiles types. So from my perspective, as one that focused on the Iranian threats for many decades, I didn't see any surprises. It doesn't mean that they don't have a few surprises on the pocket. That should be always generals and military leaders' assumptions. Where are the next surprise? If you will not prepare yourself for surprises, you will lose the campaign, you will lose the battlefield. But till now, I didn't see any surprises by the Iranian till now, but it's never done.
What was the main challenges to stopping hypersonic or very fast missiles?
There is no hypersonic missiles in Iran or in the Houthis. In fact, that they are declared that they don't have professionally that type of missiles. But once we are talking about the challenges, we are talking about long-range missiles. There is no question that the salvo, the massive salvo that you are launching from one side to other side, they are using the salvo, the massive salvo method as a main method. We prepared our forces, we prepared our technology, our system to deal with a big missiles on the same time that's flying from Iran or other places to the state of Israel. It could be a few dozens, even more. Not only Iran, we saw Hezbollah and Hamas using that method as well. In Gaza, we saw a few cases with 100 and even more simultaneously rockets and missiles flying at the same time from Gaza Strip to the state of Israel. Back to Iran, last April and October, the first two conflicts before the 12 days war last June. Last year, April and October, a huge waves of attacks by dozens and hundred missiles, UAVs and cruise missiles from Iran to Israel. That's for sure the challenge number one that the air defense systems need to deal with.
How does Israel share real-time intelligence with its allies without compromising the safety of the Israeli state?
The fact that we need to share part of the sensitive information, because if you want that coalition will stay stable and strong, you know that you need to share part of your information, because you help them to help you. Of course, we will not talk specifically about the areas and the fields that we are sharing the very sensitive intelligence information. But the fact that that is in this situation, in your very close allies, you share secrets and informations, because you know that if you want that they will be part of your side and they will use their sources to protect your people, you need to bring them the data, the information to do it. So of course with United States we do it more openly and more, and the others with a few barriers, but there is no question that we are sharing information with our allies, because we are sharing the same interests, we are sharing the same threat, and we need to maximize all the sides sources. This is part of the game.
Are there any changes made to the public warning system?
We have one of the sophisticated warning system. We are alerting our people a few minutes before the attack. It's a lot of very important minutes, in some cases only seconds. But talking about Iran and Houthis, it's 20 minutes so on, that you have time to take yourself, to take your family, to evacuate to the shelter, to save your life. And we found this system working effectively and save a life of thousands of Israelis in the last 2 years.
How quickly are the damage in the infrastructure and homes being rebuilt post the conflict?
They are part of the formula, mainly in Israel. In Israel, there is no really a border between the two sides that you mentioned. It's a close market, working together, feed each other with lesson learned, with full commitment. In war life or war time, you found that all the sides join to the campaign, which break the walls, break the borders, and one big community focus on the target.
What has been done to reduce the psychological stress, especially to children during this conflict?
Unfortunately, the Israeli people, children and teenagers, they are growing up in that crazy situation. Not only in the last 2 years, we are talking about the current situation in Israel, almost 2 years on war, on multi-front war. But even before, protective edge, pillar of defense, second Lebanon war, the first Lebanon war, every few years conflict or war. That's the situation. You need to be with your kids, to support them, to help them, the educational program, the community, the local support. It's part of the mechanism that the civilian mechanism that we build, and we know how to serve our civilian, our people, mainly kids and teenagers, but not only. Even the elders that they took part on October 7th and during the war, they need the same support. They saw a picture that they will stay with them the rest of the life, and we need also to take care about them. So the youngest and the oldest at the same time, both of them need the same support.
What diplomatic efforts help bring about the 2025 ceasefire? If you had to, who was more supportive of this ceasefire, and who helped Israel, change their tune?
There is no question that the superpower today, all over the world, United States of America, they play the main superpower, the only superpower. They spend a lot of effort to bring a ceasefire between Israel and our enemies. You mentioned before the efforts and the prices that we are paying to release our 50 people that are still under the Hamas hands in Gaza tunnels. So United States play a crucial role in this situation, but also a few of the Arab states, the authentic voice from the Palestinians, from the Hamas people, Qatar, UAE, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Each one of them have a very, very important play in this situation. I cannot say that we can take one of them out of the table and we will solve or bring a ceasefire to our region. So United States is the first priority, first place, but the other Arabs, mainly the Sunni states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, they need to take a critical role to bring a ceasefire to our region.
Was there enough medical support for casualties from the missile attacks?
From the Israeli people?
From Israeli people.
Absolutely. As I know, I didn't hear about any other situation than absolutely yes.
Did the European nations influence the course of the conflict?
Once you're asking about the European community, there is no one European voice. The European community today, they split for a few voices. Not only after the October 7th, even between themselves. You probably remember the Brexit that UK left the European community. and there are some other states that are not officially part of the European community. So, of course, you are talking today about Europe. There are main three leaders in Europe. There are UK, France, and Germany. And they are the main voice that came from Europe. Not all of them on the same status, not all of them on the same position. France, for example, took a right-wing position when the President Macron declared that he wants to push the declaration of the Palestinian state next month in the UN Assembly. Germany kind of sitting on the fence. So talking about European community, unfortunately, there is no one voice. There is a short memory in the mind of the European leaders. I think that October 7th, for themselves, it belongs to the history. But unfortunately, it's the reality. And if they will not wake up today, they will face with that threat in their own towns in the near future. I think that's the October 7th in Israel. It's a wake-up call, not only to the state of Israel. For us, it's obvious, but the rest of the world at the same time.
The streaming movements, because of the amount of illegal migration into Europe has grown tremendously, especially in Germany, France, Spain. I mean, like every country, if you take a piece, they're becoming more radicalized, and they are adapting to recruiting members of those communities that are not Muslim, that will convert into Islam based on this wrong notion of what Islam is about.
You are more than correct. You are more than correct. And a few of the European states and community started a few years ago to fight and change the internal policy. And they understood that it will change dramatically the tradition, the culture, the security in their own cities and towns. They understood all that refugees from the north part of Africa and from Syria, more than 15 years of that civil war. All of them came to Europe, and you mentioned correctly, millions of them, France, Germany, and not only UK. And they become a huge number that you cannot ignore of them. They mix themselves in the local communities. They build their communities. They are keeping the tradition. They build the roots. And a few years from today, it will be very hard, very difficult to take them out. I think that the minority of the European states understand it today. Unfortunately, they didn't understand it a few years ago. But you can not build Rome in one day, and you cannot change the situation in one day. But they need to decide how they will deal with that situation that can dramatically, the demographic situation in their own states. Because if they will not do like that, if they ignore that, they will find themselves 10 years or 2 decades from today in a situation that the culture, the tradition, it's not a German tradition, it's not a French tradition, it's an Islamic tradition, it's not a science fiction. It's possible, and they need to take the decision how to deal with that, not me and not you.
General, from the weapons that have been seized in the battlefield, have they done any study where these weapons are coming from because of their nomenclatures or the companies that build them? where are the majority of the weapons coming from into these terrorist organizations?
Most of them came from Iran. It's Iran technology, it's Iran knowledge, it's Iran industry, and they are bringing the knowledge to the local partners, Hezbollah, Hamas, other jihad groups, and they educate them how to build. And we saw it in the last 2 years in Hezbollah, in Hamas, in Gaza. They build a very sophisticated industry, homemade industry in Gaza, in Hamas, even the Houthis in Yemen. They are building the missiles in Yemen. They are not shipping the missiles as they did 10, 15 years ago from Iran to Yemen. They are building the missiles in Yemen. The Hezbollah build the UAVs and the missiles in Beirut, in South Lebanon. The Hamas organization build in underground laboratories that they build in Gaza, under the hospitals and under the mosques in Gaza, in Rafah, and other places. So the knowledge came from Iran, but the facilities, they are domestic, they are local, founding by the Iranian, and the rest, unfortunately, belongs to the history. So most of them came from Iran.
What is the status of the normalization with Arab states after the war?
Officially, there is no really change after the October 7th, the Abraham Accords, the last changes a few years ago. But I do optimistic today, watching to the north. And we spoke about the situation and the very brave decision that Lebanon took, according to Hezbollah, and the new regime in Syria, hopefully a new security agreement between Israel and Syria. Maybe the normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia that was on the table before October 7th will be back relevant. I think that there are a lot of chances, more the risk, when I try to predict the future about our Arab neighbors, mainly Lebanon, mainly Syria, Saudi Arabia. If we will make it, that will create a huge change in our region. Absolutely, that will affect immediately our security situation. It will affect immediately our economy. It will affect immediately the international community. There is no question that if these three players will be in another position a few months or a year from today, that will change dramatically our situation. And I hope that will be exist.
Can a new regional security alliance deter future threats?
Except the ones that I see today, you never know where is your next conflict, where come your next enemy, what will be the trigger that will create the new transformation or the new change. You always need to be aware about the changes, the transformations around your area, to see the clues, to see the changes of culture, changes of traditions, and new groups. What are the triggers? So try to predict who will be in the future. It's very hard. It's try to guess. It's kind to be a blind man in a dark room. That's the only way to answer that very complicated question.
Has cross-border aid for civilians in Gaza improved after the recent hostilities. And the reason I'm asking this question, there's a massive misinformation to make Israel look like the devil, when in reality, it is not like that. When in reality,
Absolutely.
Israel is
Absolutely.
as much as
The,
possible to keep those
the,
people alive,
the,
because as you mentioned, there are Israel citizens living in those areas. They mix in with the
Absolutely.
population.
Absolutely. The situation, the reality on the ground, it's totally different than the starvation campaign that Hamas and the other candidates try to push in our minds, in the media and other tools. Unfortunately, that's not the situation. But we cannot fight in this battlefield, because in this battlefield it's not about the facts, it's not about correct or incorrect, it's about the images. It's about the images. And once you are talking about images and create a campaign, like campaign, by images, by fake news, and you ignore from the reality, the only way is always to put the real picture in front of the faces for those that claim that Israel play a different player in this game. But unfortunately, we are losing that campaign, that's propaganda by the others. Our values, our principles, they are totally different than our enemies. When we are going to attack terror targets in Gaza, and they approve by the commanders, there are a lot of cases that the targets taking out of the table because innocent people, they are next to the terror groups or the terror facilities, and the terrorists know that. They put the terrorists, the Hamas headquarters in the hospitals, in the biggest hospital in Gaza, which called Shifa. There is a Shifa underground and above ground. Underground Shifa, in normal hospitals all over the world, you will find the parking lots for the cars. In Gaza, under Shifa, you will find Hamas tunnels with the Hamas headquarters. They are using the masks for military launcher sites or storage missiles and rockets. They are using the UNRWA facilities, the education facilities in Gaza to storage missiles and rockets and anti-tank missiles. This is the situation. This is the images. This is the pictures that we need to show to the world. And then let's deal with the claim that they came against Israel. That's the situation. That's the reality.
How does Israel defense plan to adapt for the next decade?
Unfortunately, the situation in Israel, we stay like that we need to be strong enough in our region. Today it's Hezbollah, tomorrow it's Iran, the day after tomorrow it's the Houthis. We are fighting more than 100 years for our liberty, for our freedom, for our rights to stay in our land. There is no other way to be strong and stable enough to protect your land, to protect your people. Not only a decade ahead, a century. This is the only way. You need to be strong to deter your enemies and have the ability to protect your interests, to protect your people, to protect your land. There is no other way to stay in our reality.
General, do you think that the inner fighting within Israeli politics during the middle of a conflict, do you think that hurts the morale of the troops to see that they going after the prime minister, they charging him in the international human rights court, and that they take shots at the prime minister while the rest of the troops and the generals and everybody is trying to concentrate on defending the country?
I don't like it. I don't like that situation, to be honest. That's not a situation that you will choose when you will send your forces, your kids, your people to protect our land, to risk their life. It's a time for united. It's not a time to split your forces and have internal conflicts and fights. Unfortunately, that the situation is one that spent more than 3 decades in the military career. I can tell you that even today, that there is a very big and strong fence between the voices out of the army and the voices inside the army. And I really proud that our military leaders, generals, and soldiers, they know to make the line. They put the uniform and join the army as a reserve or as active duty. It doesn't matter. Once you put your IDF military uniform, you are fighting, because in your platoon or in your post, you don't know that you're next to you a sitting colleague that's vote in a left-wing party, and in the other side sitting your colleague that vote for the right-wing party. So it doesn't matter. Once you have the uniform, the mission is to protect your people, to kill the enemies, and after that, back to the other internal conflicts. Till now, there are not really affects our military forces, but we need to keep it like that. It's very hard. It's very hard. I know that the military commanders making a lot to keep that situation. It's not easy as well. Absolutely.
There's a situation, one of the best allies Israel had in Latin America was the country of Colombia. Colombia has fought side by side in many of the conflicts in Israel. And under President Petro, everything went bad. He's a socialist, and he destroyed that communication between the Israeli government and the Colombian government. And now Israel is not going to continue selling them weapons and technology, training, and a lot of things that Israel was doing for Colombia. How do you
mentioned. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you think that could change in the future? Is it just because they don't like Petro, or is it something with Colombia and its people?
First of all, the fact that the situation was different before the administration. So you mentioned Colombia, but I will mention Latin America. I think Latin America, most of the countries in Latin America, except two, they have a formal relationship between Israel and themselves in Latin America. More than almost 2 dozens of states. So I think that Latin America as a group, and then separately Colombia or Mexico or Costa Rica. Each one of them, I think it's important to build our international community, international commitment. And part of the way to build that relationships, there are the economy relationships, there are import and export, not only military goods, only that it could be agriculture and high-tech or cyber or others. I think that's once the two sides understand that they are losing for the situation, they will change that. Unfortunately, it's always starts by the people. It's all by the persons. It's not by the policy. The policy created by people, by leaders. And I hope that the situation with Colombia and other Latin America states will be like it was before. I don't see any really stopper or barrier that will keep them out of the situation that was before, and I hope it will be sooner than later.
How is Israel viewing the situation that is playing out after President Trump declared, Venezuela, the Cartel de los Soles in Venezuela, a narco-terrorist organization, and on the Title 50, they mobilize certain warships into the Caribbean for the anti-narcotic drug effort?
Not every conflict all over the world related to Israel, so there are some conflict in areas that we can keep Israel out of that area. But you mentioned Venezuela, and you mentioned before Hezbollah and Iran. Venezuela, it's one of the main posts from Hezbollah in Latin America. Don't forget, they put a lot of roots in Venezuela. We all remember what did Hezbollah in Argentina for Israeli embassy and some other. So Latin America, Venezuela, I hope only Venezuela, but I don't know if it's only Venezuela, hosted Hezbollah and some other terror groups. So maybe when President Trump declared that organization as a terror organization, maybe it will create a situation that the United States will fight and deal with the global threat in that region. I think it's important for Latin America before everybody else. For Latin America safe, for Latin America alive, and then let's talk about the United States, about Israel and others.
How can Israel help build a more stable and peaceful region? Moving forward, let's say if it was up to you, what could be done for Israel to be able to live in peace? I mean, you live in the middle of a bunch of poisonous snakes, and you are living in the middle, and everybody's trying to attack you from every angle. How can that?
You're correct. We are living in a jungle, not in a kind of snakes. And that's a very, very strange neighborhood. Unfortunately, you cannot find or you choose your neighbors. You find them, and they are there. And the fact is that Israel try to keep and try to bring more pieces agreement with our region. We are all remember the peace treaty that we did with Egypt, and then with Jordan, and then with the Gulf, what's called the Abraham Accords. And I hope now a very important step of phase with Syria, and maybe in the near future Saudi Arabia, and maybe even Lebanon. So the fact that you need to create a situation that more and more states will join for that steps. And once you will create a movement, a transformation, that's a lot of states will join for that journey. That will affect the others, because the others will see it. They say, okay, we want to be also part of that journey. So we need to create the situation, but at the same time we need to keep our interests, because the enemies, they will not disappear once we will create a normalization agreement with Saudi Arabia. That will not make Hamas the peace keeper right after, or the Iranian regime 2 minutes after. But we need to split between the bad guys and the good guys, and create the situation and collect all the good guys sharing the same interest, the same enemies, and bring all of them together. I do believe that we can make it. It's all about people. It's all about our leader. If our leader will be visionaries, and they will do whatever they can to create the situation, to build the principles, to shake the hands between, first of all, the ones that I mentioned, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Syria, that will create a huge movement for the others.
What advice does the general have for the next generation of Israeli leaders facing these challenges today?
There will be the same challenges. First of all, to keep our state safe and secure, and to defend our borders, and then try to shift most of our sources from the security to civilian, to invest our educational program, to invest in our next generation, the youngest today, to develop our high-tech industry, to improve our international relationships. We need to build in a wider world than in a narrow world. Of course, the situation today forces us to focus on the security situation, but we need to move for that position, for a wider perspective position, to invest in Israel, and to build on the same time international arena that will be part of us.
General, what can we do in the United States as a country, and a lot of countries all over the world, to stamp out anti-Semitism? There are people out there that don't even believe that the Holocaust even took place. Is there a lack of education? Is there a mental illness? Is there excessive use of drugs that make people think completely out of character and out of history?
The correct answer is this, and this. It's starting with a lack of knowledge, but not only. We need to ask ourselves, each one of the local regime, what do they do to eliminate that movement in their own states. You mentioned the United States, but it's not only United States. In Europe, it's in Far East, in Australia, or even in Latin America. So each one of the leaders of the regime need to ask himself about his role to fight and to deal with that. Of course, it's our business, but we are not alone in this game, unfortunately. And I think that each one of the local regime need to invest a lot of or more efforts to fill the gaps. You mentioned the knowledge, or the gap on the knowledge, but not only. It's a media campaigns, it's educational programs, It's a policy against that illegal movements. So there are a lot of efforts or tools that you need to bring to fight or deal effectively with that situation.
Thank you, General, for being with us in today's program. I hope this is not the last time you accept our invitation. It has been a learning experience. It has been an honor for me to have you in my program. And thank you. And
thank you for the opportunity to share my experience and my insight for you and your audience, and great questions. And I do believe that it's all about people. It's all about us, and we can make the change and hopefully bring peace to our world.
And I'll say my love to all of the people in Israel, and Shabbat Shalom to all of you. And thank you for being great partners, great leaders in a nation that I have always admired. With
thank you for your kind words.
Millions approximately of people, and to have produced so many great minds in medicine, in industry, in technology, in everything, and always under attack. It is just an amazing people.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your support and your kindly words. Thank you. Have a great day.
You have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That wraps up today's episode. I would like to thank General Haimovich for his openness and thought insights. Your journey brings depth and understanding to the topics that matter to all of us. Thank you to everyone tuning in. We appreciate your ongoing support. A special thanks as well to our production team for the dedication. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow me in YouTube and Instagram. You can also join me in my weekly radio show every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. New York time at TPS Radio Libertaria. All the links are on your screen. Take care, and we look forward to welcoming you back for the next episode. God bless.